10 of the best tips that will help you declutter your home easily and in less time. Whether you love to organize or you hate it, one thing is true. The first step is we have to declutter because there is no sense organizing or tidying up things that shouldn't be there anyway. However, a lot of times when we declutter, a lot of the areas are very easy and quick, but we often fall into traps with other things that we should be letting go, but we end up convincing ourselves that maybe we should keep for one reason or another. So in today's video, I am covering 10 of my favorite tips and mantras, things to keep in mind as you go through your home and declutter. That's hopefully gonna make it easier, especially when you are on the fence of whether or not to keep something. And then it's also gonna help make the process a lot faster too. So let's check them out. And one more thing before we get started, if you would like a guide, a decluttering checklist to sort of follow along as you go, I have that for you. That'll be linked in the description below. There's the free printable there. And then that comes along with some tips and tricks for decluttering and organizing the spaces as well. Okay, now let's get to it. Okay, our first tip or mantra to keep in mind when decluttering is the 3-second rule. So how this works is when you open a cabinet or a drawer or your closet, whatever you're decluttering, lay eyes on everything and make quick decisions, sort of scan the area and decide right away. I think you're gonna find that your eyes are gonna land on something that you're like, no, but then you might start to mull it over a little bit, and this is a trap we fall into, and this is where we end up talking ourselves into keeping it when really our initial gut instinct was probably right and we could let it go. So make those decisions quick. Of course, that's not gonna work for everything, but it does work really well for some more of the mundane things, family heirlooms, things like that. No, it's not gonna work for that per se, but you know, if you open up the mug cabinet and you scan all your mugs, you know, you see one that you're like, yeah, I don't love it. But if we think about it long enough, we might convince ourselves to keep it. So go with that initial instinct that you thought in the first 3 seconds upon seeing the item. Number 2, I did not come up with. This is by The Minimalist, and this is the 20/20 rule. So what this one says is if you come across items that you're debating, do I keep it, do I let it go? Ask yourself, could I replace this for $20 or less in 20 minutes or less? An example of this is if you're going through medications. I ran into this exact scenario. I was going through our medicine cabinet and I found Alka-Seltzer, which we never use. I honestly probably have it on hand for a cleaning situation, you know, but we don't use it otherwise. So I was like, do I keep it? Do I let it go? And then I said to myself, if I end up needing it, like I can probably get rid of it. If I end up needing it, I can replace it for under $20 and I'm just gonna have to run right up to the road to the grocery store, so in less than 20 minutes, so I can let it go, and then on the off chance that I need it, it's easy to replace. So again, this won't work for everything, but for some of those inexpensive items or maybe things that you have duplicates of, it could work well. This also worked for me when I had an abundance of mason jars. I got it down to just a couple because there again, if something comes up and I need a ton of mason jars, I can easily replace them for under $20 in less than 20 minutes. So this one works more areas than you think. Won't work for everything, but it does come in handy. Number 3 is also by The Minimalist. This is the 90-day rule. So for this one, you ask yourself, have I used it in 90 days? Will I use it in 90 days? And if not, you might be able to let it go. So this one obviously works very well in closets, but I found it useful in the kitchen when I was decluttering gadgets and small appliances. For example, I came across a mandolin. First of all, I hate to cook. When I cook, if I'm gonna need something chopped, I'm probably gonna buy it pre-chopped, to be very honest with you. So not only have I not used the mandolin in 90 days, I haven't used it in probably 3 years, and I don't foresee myself using it anytime soon. So that one I let go. However, I did then come across a bundt pan, which I haven't used in 90 days. I don't know that I will use it in 90 days, but it is a staple kitchen product. And I have room for it. That's also the big difference. If you don't have room for it, then you know you might still have to let it go. But I had room for it. Like I said, it's a staple product, so that one I did hang on to. So it's gonna be case by case, but I find that one to be very helpful. And then this plays into number 4, which is asking ourselves, would you rather the thing in question or would you rather the space? So again, using the example of the bundt pan, I had the space, but if I didn't, I'd have to ask myself, how much do you really think you're gonna need this? And would you rather have the open space for something you will use versus keeping this item just because or just in case? So this obviously can work for closets or kitchens or toys or anything like that. And not only that, but sometimes it's like, not only do you want the space just to be able to put something else in it, but sometimes it's just nice to have the open space. As you start decluttering, I think you'll find that it's nice to open cabinets and drawers and have shelves that where everything isn't packed full and you just have some breathing room. That's always a good feeling too. So Be real and honest with yourself. Would you rather the thing or would you rather the space? Number 5 sort of plays into number 1, the 3-second rule, and that is just remembering the mantra that clutter is really just postponed decisions. This is why the 3-second rule is so useful, so you make those decisions quickly, but this is a lot of times a trap we fall into. It's like we know we might be getting rid of it down the road. We just don't want to make that decision right now. So we have to be honest with ourselves and ask ourselves, are we keeping it because it really is useful, we might use it someday, or are we just avoiding making the necessary decision right now? This can be a trap we fall into with gifts or family heirlooms, so just one to keep in the back of your head. And then speaking of gifts, number 6 is just keeping in mind that typically we are not gifted items with the obligation to keep it. I mean, yes, there are always those people who, if they found out that you got rid of something that they gave you, will be, hurt or upset about it. But overall, if somebody gave you a sweater or a kitchen gadget or something and you're not using it, you're not expected to keep it. Don't guilt yourself into hanging on to something just because it was given to you by somebody else. Now, again, with family heirlooms or something of high value, of course, that might be worth, hanging on to. But I'm talking the more mundane things that you just feel guilty because your friend gave it to you, or your sister, or your mom, or your husband, or your wife. So don't fall into the trap. If you truly don't use it, donate it to somebody who will. Number 7 is one I am definitely guilty of. I think a lot of people are, and I think it's actually a very popular reason why we end up with a lot of clutter, and that is because we guilt ourselves into keeping it because we paid for it. We bought it, and we feel bad that we bought something and then didn't use it and then just got rid of it. It seems like a waste, right? But here's the hard truth. You spent the money regardless. The money is already gone, the money has been spent, and there's no point in keeping something that you're not gonna use anyway just for less guilt, because honestly, I think the guilt is still there. Every time you look at that item, you're gonna be reminded, oh yeah, there's that thing I spent money on and I never used. So rip off the Band-Aid, be truthful with yourself. No, I'm not gonna use it. Yes, it was a waste. Oh well, and move on. Number 8 might not so much help you declutter, but it's gonna help you maintain your decluttered space and cut down on clutter, and that is the 1 in, 1 out rule. This one works great, especially in closets. And this is one that I committed to doing last year. It honestly was very easy and it made a big difference. So anytime I bought new clothes, a new sweater, a new t-shirt, jeans, whatever, when I brought something new in, something old went out that I wasn't wearing. Now again, the stipulation here is gonna be if you only have 5 t-shirts and you're like, I need more t-shirts, then don't get rid of ones that you're wearing. But it really works for the clothing you're really not wearing or that you don't love. So 1 in, 1 out works really all over your home, but especially is great in closets. And then this leads into number 9, which is really just asking ourselves a series of questions when we're stuck. And that is, do you love it? Do you use it? I don't like asking, will you use it? Because we'll talk ourselves into it like, oh yeah, I will use it down the road. So do you love it? Do you use it? Do you feel good in it? That's a really good one for our closets, because there's probably a lot of clothes that we're hanging on to that we can look at and be like, yeah, wouldn't be my first choice to grab, but we're probably hanging on to it because we bought it. So ask yourself, does it make me feel good when I wear it? If not, the chances of you grabbing it over the other things in your closet that you do love are probably slim. So if you don't feel good in it, let it go. And then lastly, would you buy it again if it was for sale today and you didn't already have it? And lastly, number 10, this one isn't so much to help you declutter, but it's a good mantra to keep in mind when it comes time to organize or tidy the space, and that is visible is usable. If you can see it, you'll use it. If you can't, you won't. Also, you may have heard vertical is visible, horizontal is hidden. So it just comes to, cabinets or shelves or drawers. Obviously, if things are stacked in a drawer, you're not gonna see the item on the bottom. And if things are lined up on a cabinet or a shelf, you're not gonna see the things in back. So some of my favorite ways to make everything more visible is maybe a lazy Susan on a shelf, so that way you can easily access everything, see the items in the back, that you spin it all around, you can see everything, or tiered risers, so the items in the back are elevated higher than the things in the front, or drawer style organizers that you can put maybe under the sink or on shelves or in cabinets as well. And then for clothing in drawers, I like file folding so that you can see everything, because if we can't see it, it's wasted in the back or on the bottom, it's gonna just become clutter. So something to keep in mind when it comes time to organize your now decluttered space. All right, and that does it. Just some of my favorite tips and tricks for decluttering a space, especially when you hit those roadblocks and you're really stuck on whether to get rid of something or keep it. I think that you'll find if you start implementing these, it's gonna make it a lot easier to part with some things, and it's gonna save you time. Don't forget to grab my decluttering checklist. That's in the description description below. There's a pre-filled out version that you can use as a guide or a blank if you want to fill in your own areas. Hit the thumbs up button if this was helpful, and don't forget to subscribe for even more helpful organizing tips.